Do I need to remind you what is out there?
Once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. And in this world, that sort of shit's good for one thing. Getting you killed.
Although The Last of Us is a third-person shooter from developer Naughty Dog, it could not be further removed from the Uncharted franchise that they're known for. Gone is the colourful world of whimsical adventure and happy-go-lucky characters, and in its place a desolate, depressing wasteland characterised by brutality, oppression, broken morality, and zombies. Yeah, it's a zombie apocalypse setting, essentially. But to be fair, the zombies don't play that big a factor. You don't fight them that often, and for the most part, it's very easy to forget they're even there. Most of the game sees you fighting the true monster. Humanity itself. Now, if that sounds a bit familiar, well, that's because that's how most zombie fiction plays out these days. Let's face it, Last of Us is not going to win any awards for originality, especially when it wears quite so many movie references on its sleeve. Let's just say if you've seen the movie Children of Men, which if you haven't, why haven't you? It's a great movie. You're going to get a bit of deja vu when you play The Last of Us. But whatever, Naughty Dog didn't make a name for themselves by coming out with the most original concepts. They did it by setting new standards for quality. And with The Last of Us, they have set that bar so goddamn high that I really don't know where they go from here. Now, realistic is a word we like to throw around a lot here in the game industry, but I feel like The Last of Us is one of the few games that truly deserves that label. Its post-apocalyptic world has been realised with an astounding level of detail, to the point where every nook and cranny feels like it's trying to tell you some kind of story. And whereas most games would be content to simply use the same generic assets over and over again, in The Last of Us, every inch of it feels like that it's been painstakingly crafted to add real personality and character to what could have easily been very cookie-cutter environments. And in true Naughty Dog style, it's all been rendered with about as much graphical fidelity as the PS3 can still pump out. And turns out that that's quite a lot.
Fireflies. Same thing's gonna happen to us if we don't get off the street.
You're the pro. I'm just following you.
Of course, that's all for nothing if it's not supported by equally realistic characters, and thankfully The Last of Us provides those in spades. For a game with such a generic premise, it does a very good job of avoiding some of the more irritating and common character tropes that sadly permeate our industry, and that combined with an award-worthy script results in a cast of very well-rounded and believable characters that, as far as I'm concerned, are in a league of their own. Perhaps its biggest break with tradition is that, well, morally ambiguous don't even begin to describe our two protagonists. Even in a world where any distinction between good or evil has largely been eradicated as everyone does whatever they have to do to survive, these are still some pretty messed up individuals, which makes a nice change from the all-too-common goody-two-shoes archetype that we're all used to at this point. And while their journey is mostly marred by bouts of intense violence, the game still sees fit to indulge in many quiet and quite tender character moments, which allow it to cultivate relationships rarely explored in any big-budget media, never mind video games. And I'd say that even amongst this game's many virtues, that is by far its greatest triumph.
You mumble in your sleep. I hate bad dreams.
Yeah, me too.
And that's all well and good, but sometimes you'll just want to shoot a guy. And those bits are pretty good too.
Chicken shit!
While there's clearly a bit of Uncharted DNA beneath the surface in this combat engine, the standard tactic of running and gunning will likely get you killed fairly quickly. As well as having a very meagre health bar, resources are exceptionally limited, which means that efficiency is indeed the word of the day. And by that I mean crafting weapons on the fly and ensuring that every single precious bullet counts. Thanks to the game's open environment and wide array of items at your disposal, it's largely up to you to decide how you go about doing that. Melee, stealth, traps, protracted firefights, or just avoiding combat altogether are all very viable strategies. The enemy artificial intelligence also plays a large factor in the game's combat puzzle. Unlike your common garden variety goons, these guys can't actually see through walls, which allows for all sorts of interesting tactics and strategies that I've always wanted to try in a video game but haven't actually been able to until now. On the other hand, enemies are also far more coordinated than you might expect. If you dawdle around in the same spot for too long, they will simply outflank you, and then beat you to death with a bit of pipe, or fill you with lead. Or sometimes, if you're lucky, both. It's kind of over for you if that happens. What this meant was that even long after I'd mastered the game's mechanics, combat still felt very tense and forced me to carefully consider each and every move lest something very grim indeed happened to my protagonist. Their inherent stupidity means that the encounters with zombies are far less tactical, however, their sheer numbers mean that ammo conservation becomes an even bigger issue than it was before, which is a mechanic that should be very familiar to anyone who has messed around in the cult classic DayZ. Now, if The Last of Us has one flaw that I need to point out, and I do, it's that it's clear a lot of concessions were made for the sake of gameplay, sadly at the cost of immersion. It's little things like enemies dropping wildly inappropriate weapons and ammo, the exact same platform puzzles cropping up time and time again, picking up pills from the floor somehow being tied to leveling up your various survival skills, and of course the constant cycle of everything's fine, we're perfectly safe here, oh no wait, there are bandits, let's go kill some people. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of that stuff, it just feels very gamey. And after it had drawn me in so far, I always felt like that was the final barrier that prevented me from being fully immersed in The Last of Us. But hey, there's only so much you can ask of a game that manages to somehow excel in every other regard, and manages to sustain that level of quality throughout a 14-hour campaign, and provides a surprisingly competent multiplayer mode. So yeah, my complaints seem rather trivial in the grand scheme of things. I find it very fitting that one of the PS3's last big exclusives is a shining example of the heights our medium can reach, one delivered by one of Sony's all-time premier development studios. Whatever way you look at it, The Last of Us is not to be missed.
Why don't you try to get some sleep? All right.
I'm not even tired.
Blossoms unfold.